VITAL HOOPS. For the people, by the people. For the culture.
Peace. Jumbo, welcome to the VITAL HOOPS Podcast, right here on Black Power Media, Reloaded. My name is Fernando Cardenas, aka International XB. This is episode number 84. Our guest today is a global legend when it comes to hip-hop culture. He's a Ugandan rapper, musician, producer, a community youth activist, and social entrepreneur. He is joining us live from Uganda, straight from the motherland. And if you're not familiar with the brother, now you are. Our guest is Babaluku. Welcome to the VITAL HOOPS Podcast, Babaluku. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, fam. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I've been looking forward, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. It's always beautiful to connect with the relatives, regardless of where we're placed on the map,
Right.
And that's the beauty of this digital platform, giving us access and connectivity,
No doubt. It is.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful thing. That's why, I started this podcast and, to connect with the brothers and sisters around the world,
Yes, sir.
who are part of this culture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this right away, man. I know, you're known as an MC, but did you get into any of the other elements growing up? Did you practice any of the other elements?
I mean, yeah, growing up, I was around. I tried everything, I didn't start by emceeing. I wanted to dance. I wanted to dance, so I got into a bit of breaking. I did a little bit of graffiti. I've always been one who participates holistically,
No doubt. Talk a little bit about that, man. I want to know about your childhood, man. You growing up, how hip hop became a part of your culture. Yeah, please, man.
Yeah, I mean, born and raised in Kampala, Uganda, Zambia Hospital, to be specific, as a proud son of a village called Makindye. I was born to, a church family, preachers, so I grew up in church. But before even the church, it's the idea of seeing entertainment around the household and what people were doing. I had uncles who really loved rap. That's even before I found out what hip hop was. I was seeing rap in videos, seeing, VHS tapes that used to come through Africa. I think I had to be around 7, 8, 9-year-old watching these videos and watching the music, emulating what people were doing, and then break dancing in around the early 80s, came into Uganda, and I tried breaking then, like as a little kid, And so,
who were some of those artists you were seeing at that time?
At that time, we were looking at people like, of course, I think MC Hammer.
Yeah.
You saw people at that time that were like, of course, the Vanilla Ice tapes or whatever pop culture was leaking into the content. Of course, there was also videos that would reach you like, Public Enemy, like Boogie Down Production. Yeah, and it's the authenticity that would be in those videos that was really lucrative, to be very curious on what is that? It's exciting, fun. I would love to try that,
Sure.
And so I think those energies started to build in me the desire to move towards knowing and learning more about these things that I was starting to be passionate about. And to tell you the truth, before I ever got into emceeing, I enjoyed the idea of the colorful and expressive way that hip hoppers were utilizing, in the culture. So as I started to learn about the culture, when my family migrated to Canada, I was around 12 years old.
Yeah.
As an immigrant kid and learning a new environment, I think safe to say hip hop became my guiding compass because I couldn't relate to no one in the white neighborhood that I grew up in. Hip hop gave me a fix, in a corner where I could really start to learn the new environment and the new place that I was in ways that the outside was very confusing. For the first time I was learning about racism. I was learning the coloring, like, people seeing you in color. I had
Right,
never,
right.
all black, I was just, a human out here on the continent.
No doubt, yeah, because when you're back home,
Yeah,
everybody's black.
yeah, yeah. Unheard of. Like, you ain't got to talk about that,
Right, right, right.
So,
Yeah,
here I am learning that I'm different in the new world and that I have to dress different, live different, talk different. Uh, I'm subject to a few things that not everyone is subject to. Um, I'm literally a target, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
for any new culture norms that I was not privy to.
Right,
You
right.
I think that then, led me to engage more in a culture from a form of activism. That's why I've never been a commercial MC because,
Word.
into the culture to commercialize. I came out here to speak my truth, heal myself, tell my story, and learn, most
Mhm,
important,
mhm.
and that's where building for me has come from.
No doubt, man. What part of Canada was that?
I grew up in a small white town called Fort Erie. It's a border town. It borders Buffalo, New York, but it's around the Niagara Falls area. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I lived in Michigan for a while. Uh,
Detroit. Yeah,
yeah, Ann Arbor. I went to Concordia University in Ann Arbor, real close to Detroit.
yeah, got you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The cold up there is difficult, man. It's unbearable.
Yeah, man. The North is not easy, man. It gets really cold. Minus, you got to
Yeah,
be ready.
man, you look outside the window, everything is all white for like 7 months straight, man. You're like, God damn.
Yeah, I remember when I
Right.
went to Michigan, man, Michigan was
Yeah,
freezing.
Michigan is freezing, bro.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. So did you start rhyming back home or when you got to Canada? When did you first start rhyming?
I think I recognized the pattern of rhyming from back home. You know
Okay.
what I mean? And it was not necessarily rhyming as an MC, but, in school poetry,
Yeah.
uh, the riddles in the culture settings that we used to, to recite. Matter of fact, my first effort to rhyming came from the culture riddles that were in my tradition. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
When they had patterns,
Yeah, yeah.
and I hadn't put two and two that was also, a framework for hip hop culture.
Mm.
It's that I recognize, and that's why sometimes when we talk about Africa being the blueprint of the elements, you know what I'm
Of
saying?
course. All of
It's like,
them, all the elements can be traced back.
yeah, yeah. And so I was like, oh shoot, I did not have a clue on what that was.
No doubt.
So
Yeah.
man, I committed to literally be one of the brothers on the continent who's able to authenticate rap in a native dialect and
Mm.
at the same time have experiences and redefinitions that could really instill hip hop from an indigenous perspective. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
for sure.
And so activating a lot of our young people to rap in their native dialects,
Hmm.
giving them the platforms to expose their truth and their voices on various mediums,
No
and then
doubt.
teach them how to build movements that really represent the authenticity of the places
Hmm.
and the spaces they represent.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Talk to me about your crew, man. Bataka Squad. When does that begin? Talk to me about the building of that.
yeah, Bataka Squad, man, Bataka Squad. The era is 1995. My father deceased, and then I ended up having to travel back home from Canada for the funeral.
Okay.
Came to the funeral, I happened to stay in Uganda for an entire year.
Okay.
And during that whole entire year, I had access to church equipment and cassette recordings. And so a lot of young people used to come to my room or the house where I stayed to come and record. And so we would lock ourselves in a room and
Hmm.
record cassette tapes over, instrumentals, you
Yeah.
know, and I would on our cassettes like nothing. That was the thing. Like it was an activity.
Yeah.
You know, that activity brought a lot of friends, a lot of peers. It created references in the neighborhood. It made me a little bit famous early. Kids knew the preacher's kid who had access to microphones and setups in his room. So yeah. So I had space for people to come and lock in so it could get down.
Yeah, man. That's a beautiful thing, man. I remember same here, man. When I first started rhyming, me and my cousin, we used to
Yeah.
record on the cassettes. We had to, you had to get it all right. You had to do the whole track from top to
One
bottom.
take. One take.
If you messed up, you got to start from the beginning, man. The beautiful thing.
That is the energy and the era that attracted the Bataka crew. because that's how we started meeting. Like everyone would tell the other, and so the other comes in. We actually had a crew that did R&B, dancehall, and hip hop. Like we had a whole collective of like inviting everyone to get in talent, and so give us a one up at the time because everyone would only do one thing, but our crew had everybody that does everything.
Right.
So that edge on like every time we popped up at different talent shows, you know, or we started doing our own little school shows, like going around in different schools. And that all like was the era in which we were formulating to really come into a friendship that will form the Bataka era, you know, the Bataka squad or Bataka underground.
Yeah. I'm sure the people thought y'all was crazy, huh?
Of course, at that time, doing things that people didn't believe could be done.
Right.
We were misfits, man. We were defiant. We were just like totally in a place where, you know, what's that? One of the craziest things is that they always looked at hip hop culture as an American thing.
Same.
So,
Yeah.
as what I'm saying, you had no respect because you're trying to be that American person.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, so there was no value and incentive for them to be about what you're doing. I mean, you're as good as just doing karaoke, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And keep it moving, you know. But I think that for a long period of time, when people didn't think that we could rap in our own native dialects, there was that disenfranchising energy of like, those guys who do it like Americans, you know?
Yeah.
But what I learned from taking the language route is that we started to open up the hearts of the people, and they started to hear their messages. They started to relate. They started to adjust, you know,
no doubt.
that this poetic expression in their dialects is something that represents them, you know, which, you know, gave us as Bataka Squad a pioneering angle to really stand for advocating for hip hop and indigenous languages, you know, which is what we're known for, you know, the Luga Flow movement.
For sure.
You know?
For sure. Yeah. What's the hip hop scene looking like today in Uganda, man? In general.
The hip hop in Uganda literally stands on the backs of the ghetto youth because the ghetto youth adopted the passion and the love for the culture. They all took up the elements as their tools. So in every community where you go, you'll find a breaker, you'll find a beatboxer, you'll find an MC, you know, you'll find a graffiti artist, you know. And so I think for me, the ghetto youth really massively represent hip hop culture here authentically. As far as on the commercial tip, we have a few brothers, you know, who've also managed to go mainstream, you know, and it's just that balance. You know what I'm saying? We understand what mainstream does. And so part of my game to actually stay consistent with the underground and build with a movement. But I definitely have, you know, fam too that has gone mainstream and they're doing their thing, you know. But we're here, you know, the culture's here to stay. It's in the country. The corporates are learning to now move towards it. And hopefully we could be integral to make sure that we represent our identity well, which is what I do all the time. You know, I get hated for that, but I'm like, yo, the culture's got to be pure here, you know?
That's right, man. Yeah, that's necessary. We need that, man. Yeah, so listen, man. This morning, I was listening to your album, The Luga Flow Revolution, man.
Yeah.
I believe y'all dropped that in what, 2009?
Yeah, around
Something
2000.
like that. Yeah. Love it, man. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I love it. I love the energy. I feel like, you know, I feel like it speaks to me. You know what I'm saying? Even though I've never been to Uganda, I feel like it speaks to me. But, you know, I talk a lot to my, you know, I'm part of the underground scene in Cuba mainly. You know, I'm Afro-Cuban, so that's where I started right now. Right now I'm in France, but you know, we started in Cuba and like we
you know.
What's up?
My brother from Obsession.
Oh, Alexei.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my brother too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Shout out to Alexei, man. And Maya. And Maya, man. Obsession, man.
Yeah, I had a chance to rock with them when they came to Vancouver.
No doubt. That's beautiful, man. Yeah, me and Alexei, we done some work together, man. Both in the community and on the mic too, man. Yeah. Yo, he got, you know, him and his wife now have this project called Regla Soul, where they, you know, they're working on urban agriculture and all of that, you know, in the neighborhood for the people, for Afro-Cubans. And, you know, I was a part of that, you know, until I had to come here to France. I had to leave during COVID with the family. But yeah, man, with me, Alexei is my brother, man. So shout out Alexei, man.
You know?
That's right. But yeah, I was saying, we always speak about, the importance of culture, us as hip hoppers. And, I feel like the culture always has to serve the people. You know what I'm saying? If the culture is not serving the people, then it's not culture. I feel like, it has to speak to the needs of the people, to the well-being of the people. And so, when we speak about hip hop, I know you and I are connected with this. We speak about community, you know what I'm saying? How do you feel hip hop can help us or can be used as a tool for liberation?
Yeah, I think within the understanding, when you take a holistic understanding of what hip hop culture
Mm.
is so the word hip hop culture is just the urbanized framework,
Hmm.
from an urban space. But when you come back to the indigenous culture, the poetics of the land were always here, reciting
Yes.
and and informing the masses on the happenings, the wisdom, the knowledge, the preservation. And so I
Exactly.
think in our urban spaces now, as we've adopted to the lingo of hip hop culture,
Mhm.
the idea is that it plays the same role. It gives us the power to learn, the power to connect, the power to build, the power to cast new futures, the power to philosophize, and also the power to ensure that future generations will actually find track record of where and what we represented when we existed. So I think hip hop culture is a very powerful tool, not only in this day and time, from its conception, its ability to transcend, to unify, races, to build and connect languages, to create a frequency that's understandable, that's relatable, to incite a human soul to have their own reflection and breast and tell their truth. I think all of this gives us the power as hip hoppers to know that the influence we have on preserving humanity and
Mhm.
casting new futures is very powerful. And so
Yes.
when we belong to the hip hop culture, we should not limit ourselves to the framework of just the urban narrative. We should know that we are universally aligned with the forces that be to contribute to humanity in our lifetime here. So as a hip hopper, as a practitioner, my thing is like always letting people know that hip hop is a reflection of humanity. And this is one of the best ways that young people, both young and old, can always convene to carry the future forward.
That's right. Yeah, nah, I appreciate that answer, man. Like you said, hip hop is always gonna be alive as long as our people are here, as long as the struggle is alive. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Hip hop is gonna be alive and there's gonna be the mainstream, it has its things, but for example, like you said, when you started listening to or watching the videos or listening to the music, it was mainstream.
yeah,
Same with me, you know what I'm saying? I started off, I was watching the mainstream, and that's what got me interested to dig into the underground, and that's how I got into the culture, right?
yeah,
So, there's always positive and negative within all of it. But we find ourselves in the culture, and no matter where we at on the planet, you know what I'm saying? Hip hop is an indigenous culture, man. Hip hop,
yeah,
began with the children of the African diaspora in New York, and
yeah.
it's global, man. So it's a beautiful thing. Talk to me. I like your shirt there, man. Talk to me about that, man. Mwooyo Apparel.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mwooyo, the spirit.
Mwooyo, yeah.
So Mwooyo, shout outs to Sustainable Access Foundation. Shout out to 478. Our brothers in the UK.
Okay.
So Mwooyo comes to fruition or the manifestation as a response to the after COVID effects. When
Mm,
people are depressed, I traveled to Canada and I found an energy that was just also funky over there. Like people were really in a lot of like distress, the readjustments of the return, to
hmm
normal, what I mean? And so while I was there, it was so intense more than it was here on the continent. I knew my people were also going through so much from losing businesses and all of that stuff with zero support. But I listened, Canada, they had support. So then I recognized a thread that I had to piece together, which was like, what do we need in this time? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do we resuscitate and encourage folk to really remember or be reminded that they're humans first, before the oppression? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's how talking about Mwooyo started to really, build, as a response to healing. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? So
yeah.
shout out to Sister Danica. We had conversations going back and forth. And I started sharing. I'm like, yo, I feel like our people need to heal. Like
Mm,
we need and people the greatness within them. So if Mwooyo is going to be something that's going to, guide us into, a conscious community, bringing back collective consciousness on the frontier. I mean, let's use it to do something great. Let's use it to do something big. And so more is also now an income generating activity for the movement to be able to build the first gift, which we call the legacy gift. It's the Muga Legacy Builders Village. So we got land in a village by the Nile that we want to use apparel to build, a retreat, spiritual healing center for the creatives of the land. And so that's what Mwooyo is about. So, when you see us pop and launch in your city, let us know, you know what I mean?
No
so you
doubt.
can movement anywhere you are on the planet.
Yes. What does Mwooyo mean, literally?
Mwooyo, spirit in Luganda.
Spirit. Okay. That's beautiful, man. Yo, speaking about, wellness and, health, are you familiar with the 10th element of hip hop? With hip hop is green?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's a shout out to Keith Tucker, man. And hip hop is green, man. We got to present the 10th element with Alexei in Cuba. We did it. We presented the 10th element. Yeah. And we did it over here with a Pan-African Legal Moja as well. We got this Pan-African hip hop, and we presented the 10th element of hip hop, health and wellness, man.
Oh, it's powerful. I actually presented the entire site to another partner of mine, and I'm like, we need to do this here in Uganda.
Hey, word. That's necessary, man.
That is the completeness. That's a complete 360, leading us back to the land. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And reclaiming our sovereignty and being able to take back the power to grow our own food, to feed people. That nothing beats that. I always say the reason we got land for the community once again is because I was doing a retreat called Back to the Source. And I want people here to go back to the source of the Nile, and we're doing ciphers at the Nile and doing conferences and learning together. And then I was like, but what's the bigger mission? And my bigger mission came out. I was like, we need to actually be in land justice. You know what I'm saying? We got to work on ensuring that indigenous land is preserved and is kept within our framework. And that led me to the idea of starting to think about purchasing land for community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's my legacy gift to my people, because I believe, what I don't take with me is my energy that I'll live here. You know what I'm saying? So able to create access for the next generation to grow and find new places that speak health, that cover all the elements, that offer knowledge, that offer the liberty to create. I think those are some of the powerful things that our children will thrive in.
That's
you know what I'm knowing that we stood up for something, and we didn't only stand, but we manifested freedom, and you can't build freedom than land. You know what I'm saying?
That's right, man. And like you say, our ancestors were always connected to the land, and and just to nature in general. We understood we were one with nature, and that's part of our of our health crisis, is that we're so disconnected to nature. You know what I'm saying? We're so disconnected mentally, physically, everything. And so it's important for us to get back to touching the ground, being on that land and growing food, you know what I'm saying? And being in tune with nature, really. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We have a movement that we've been working with here back and forth. We believe that when we talk about, hip hop, land, and growing food, we're literally representing what agriculture is, which is to agree with the culture. You know what I'm saying? So we move in that element, knowing exactly that every time we move to the land, we are agreeing or are in agreement with the culture. And that's the how we as indigenous MCs that we can offer the universe,
I love that. How can, if anybody that's listening or watching, how can they purchase some of that Mwooyo Apparel online?
We're setting up the purchase line. The website is up.
Okay.
Getting ready to roll out. Mwooyo's been in the background. We had a 12-week intensive brand design course that came with starting Mwooyo. And so I had about another number of about 15 creatives join us. So we could be able to really sink into what Mwooyo should do, how we should connect with the community. And so now we've been preparing to get out to the world. And we in the now building up the cultural representation of the spirit. So we're doing events. We have the gathering. We have spoken. We're coming up with more, events to really infuse the energy of this truth in every corner and circle that we are affiliated with. Because we don't just an apparel, we want it to be an identified energy that actually people wear and move with.
No doubt.
Yeah, they make sure they check us out on Mwooyo.com. You know what I'm saying?
Mwooyo.com. I'm gonna have that down in the description. The link is gonna be down in the description.
Yes, sir.
So listen, brother, man. Listen, I appreciate your time, man. I got a couple more questions. I want to ask you about, what's your advice, as an OG to young people, not just artists, just people that are in the culture. You know what I'm saying? Young people growing up that are in the culture, whether it's an MC, a breaker, a graffiti artist, or just someone that just loves the culture, that's a part of it through community or whatever. What's your advice to them, man?
I think my advice to all the practitioners or to those who engage with the culture is to understand the sacredness of what we are immersed in, to understand the beauty of what we are presented, to be unified collectively, like a force and an energy that unifies all of us. I mean, from Cuba to Kampala, we are here convening as brothers, in appreciation, with gratitude in what we all do. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of where we're situated. And I always tell people that learn to honor the foundation of the truth in which you immerse yourself, so you can be able to yield all you need in your lifetime here in your most authentic, way. You know what I mean? So I think that hip hop is a vehicle that authentically gives us that key, and allows you to move as you wish, authentically as you desire, and at the same time to make the impact that you're here to make. Let no one tell you, you're chosen, for the culture if you're in it. You know what I'm saying? You got to make your meaning and take your strides and ensure that you're paying attention and observing how your growth is guiding you to higher dimensions, in your learnings. We are all constantly elevating and learning in the culture, what I mean? And I like to encourage people to seek the 5th L, you know what I'm saying? Keep on that knowledge, you know what I'm saying? Keep equipping yourself with the truth, keep, diversifying your approach. Keep, cracking new codes. You know what I'm saying? Innovate, invent, you know what I mean? And be able to lay foundation. Think about legacy always. Don't just think about the elements. But, practice the element to build legacy. You know what I mean? So that indeed you know that you live with purpose here. And so I think that those things for me are things that I always see in the hearts of young MC, young breakers, young graffiti artists. When I'm bringing them together, I always try to question them. And so we're doing this graffiti and for what? Are we just going to tag walls, or we're breaking them for what? You know what I'm saying? What happens after the show? You know what I'm saying? So I'm always getting the idea to have a conversation that allows them to be practitioners, but holistically as humans, engaging in their gift space to contribute to humanity, so that indeed they can leave feeling worthy of the gifts that they've been, given to serve while they were here. You know what I mean?
Right. No doubt.
Appreciate it. Man, serve your way out. The gift is to be used. And how do we use it? By serving. You know what I mean? And so let the gift guide you. I always say, do not forget that the entire hip hop sphere is a spiritual realm. So don't get caught up in the physical elements. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And not explore the completeness or the wholeness that the spirit quantifies, when you tap in. That's why Mwooyo, man. The slogan is tap in. Tap in. Or holistically exploring your greatness. Or get out there and do something great. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt. No doubt, man. Yeah, it's a holistic thing for sure. Listen, as an MC, man, I know your pen is sharp. Your skills are top tier, man. To you, what makes an MC great?
Truth. You know what I mean? Truth. If an MC is able to literally storytell in truth form, and is able to cover and embrace or embody the emotional truth of understanding what relations are, because we are relating with the people. You know what I'm saying? And so every good MC should be able to have an energy that not only inspires or literally attracts, but most importantly, one that connects. You know what I'm saying? One that connects all of us. So if I'm writing something, I know I want to be connecting with my people in Cuba, even if they understand my flow or not. Like my energies, I hope my brothers will listen and hear me as much as I'm a fan of Cuban hip hop. It doesn't matter if it's Chinese hip hop or Haitian hip hop, whatever it is. The indigenous representation of the energy allows us to seek to connect. You know what I'm saying? So for me, a great MC is one whose work and craft allows others to connect and build upon his energy.
No doubt. I like that, man. With that being said, if you could give me like 3 to 5, MCs or artists that motivated you, that inspired you.
I mean, we'll go with KRS-One, the Temple of Hip Hop.
The teacher.
I mean? Yes, the teacher. Without the teacher, I wouldn't have had the movement passion on how to build movements. You know what I'm saying?
Man. That's right, BDP.
Yeah, big up. Shout out to KRS-One and the entire BDP. You know what I'm saying? Of course, when you go from KRS, you definitely look at Tribe Called Quest. Of course, Busta Rhymes goes in there. Dead Prez, you know what I'm saying? Big up to M1.
Yes.
Stick man.
Salute.
Yeah. And who else? Of course, I got to say Duck Down. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in the Duck Down.
Man.
Influenced my MC passion of style, as just the whole representation.
Yo, Black Moon, Smith and Wesson.
Smith and Wesson. Shout out to Smith and Wesson.
Yeah, much respect.
Of course, coming in, you got to look at Wyclef, what I mean? Fugees, what I'm saying?
Yes.
My Canadian side, shout outs, to the brother Cardinal. Of course, the entire Circle clique, everybody that was in that, they did a lot of great work that influenced us to be able to learn how to not only just spit, but, be able to be people with substance, you know what I'm saying? Sure. But yeah, man, there's more. I mean, usually when it's like all of them disappear.
Yeah.
But most definitely Talib Kweli. Yeah, definitely.
Black Star for sure.
Black Star,
Yeah, no doubt.
Who else? So there's a lot of MCs, and then of course, shout outs, to a lot of my brothers out here. You know what I mean? On the East Coast. Of course, when you look at Tanzania, my brother AY, my brother Fit Q. You know what I mean? Shout outs to KB, OGs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Industry for decades, but they rip the culture hard. And then when you look at my country here, we have enough young underground MCs that have also kept the movement alive, and so we salute them. You know what I'm saying?
I wanted to ask you about that. If there's, a couple of MCs that you would like to speak about, just so that people can research and check them out. People that are not necessarily known, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Shout out to my man Spider MC. You know what I mean? Shout out to the entire Cypher Kabaka family. Y'all know yourselves. It's a squad. You know what I mean? It's a collective of powerful spitters.
Cypher Kabaka?
Yeah, Cypher Kabaka, the kings of the Cypher.
Okay.
Many of them, come from my school of hard knocks, like, where I'm training MCs. And so I knew that they raised their ranks and were able to take on the city. And, they're the kings of freestyle. They're untouchable.
Right.
They can rap for 24 hours.
Non-stop. Real MCing on the corner just all day.
When electricity is on or not, they keep it moving,
That's right. Beat with a little beatbox.
Or with the drums,
Word, man.
Definitely saw the era where the indigenous drums came back into the hip hop space. And so whether we're plugged into the digital, we're still in the old, we're still represented. We came off.
For sure.
So yeah, many of them. Big shout outs to Taye, shout out to Kobzak, shout out to Prime MC, of course, Fitzo MC. You know what I mean? Shout outs to Nina MC, shout outs to Natural Calamity. I could go on. You know what I mean? List goes on.
I appreciate that, man. Yo, listen, man, I've been checking out what you've been, your work and everything for a little minute now, but I was thinking, I don't remember who put me onto your work, man. It wasn't Alexei. I think it might have been Toni. Are you familiar with Toni Blackman?
Yeah.
I think it might have been Toni that put me under your work, man. Shout out to Toni Blackman.
Yeah, big up, Sister Toni Blackman. Yeah,
for sure.
Shout outs from Kampala to Brooklyn.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it was Toni, man. Shout out Toni, man.
She came out here, and we had moments of building. I took her to one of the ciphers, actually.
Okay,
Met it out to come to the village and engage in a cipher. So shout outs to Sacrifice, and I knew that she was under the weather, but she still came through for the love of the culture.
Wow, that's the stuff, man. Yeah. I know she be out in Senegal a lot too.
Yeah, that's corner, man. She definitely reps Senegal hard.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
we were glad to have her in the East. It was really refreshing to have a sister come out here,
Mm.
bring that Cypher love and energy within the hip hop sphere.
Word up, man. Yo, I appreciate your work, brother. Can you let the people know where to catch you, man? Whether Instagram, your website, whatever, man, so they can,
Yeah,
tap
and
in.
so for the checking in on the movement, Instagram at Bavubuka, which is at Bavubuka, Bavubuka. The website is www.bavubuka.org. As far as what's the other movement? Of course, check out the Mwooyo Apparel. Coming soon to the city near you. You know what I mean? That's at www.mwooyo.com. You know what I mean? That's for the spirited who want to tap in. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Also me, if you want to check out and follow my daily, at Babaluku, which is at Babaluku, Babaluku. Check me out. You know what I mean? Let's build though. I always like people who want to build. And for my brothers out there, like every end of the year, we host our relatives from around the globe who come out to connect at the source. And so this is one of our highest mandate as indigenous hip hop practitioners to convene with our relatives from all across the globe at the home and the center of civilization and be able to reimagine and re-envision our pathways and our journeys moving from there forward. You know what I mean? So it's a powerful convening. It always brings us together. It always edifies and honors the ancestors. But most importantly, it liberates all of us to move back into the world, knowing that we're sharp and sharper than ever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Ready to take on whatever, because once you hit, the center at the source of the Nile, you get to understand that you've journeyed that far or lived that long enough to make 360 with the universe,
Mm.
where it started. So as part of the hip hop framework, we invite all our people to come in, man. So whether you're from Cuba, you know what I'm saying, come through, Haiti, come through,
Word up.
Jamaica, wherever you're coming from, man, New York, whatever,
Yeah.
hit us up. Let us connect. Let's build in a continent. We're here for you. We will ensure we host you and lead you in within the spaces to really learn and connect with the brothers and sisters here.
No doubt, man. I appreciate that, my brother. Before I let you go, last thing, book recommendation, man. If you have a book, a good book that you want to recommend to people, you know what I'm saying?
My book here. I'm trying to look at my cover here because I just put it away.
Yeah, you good. I always tell people nowadays, a lot of our people, unfortunately, are getting their information, from small clips on Instagram or whatever. And, it's important for us to get back to the books, man.
Most definitely, a lot of people don't get a chance to really understand or get information because, of course, even in the book section, we haven't had Black libraries.
That's
We
right.
have people who offer that information. So most often, it's hard to find a book that has the information that's within your own frequency and your own understanding.
That's
You know,
right. That's right, man. Yeah, man. My son he's in public school here in France, man. But when he comes back with some of the history they're learning, man, I cringe, man. It's
yeah,
already. And he's only
that,
9. He's only
that,
9. They're already pushing.
that's a suffering. That's a suffering state. You know what I'm saying? Where we subject our children to soaking information that literally we understand, is definitely not going to create any further, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we have to change out of that.
Yeah.
And so I think the new book I was reading, I put it away from here. But there's a book by one of the sisters from hip hop. It's called Hip Hop for Development.
Okay.
And so because I'm in a hip hop sphere, I'm always trying to, sharpen my approach and understand. So big up to Sister Thandi P. Hicks, you know what I'm saying? She hooked me up with that little book, and it's been a little manual that I'm using now to kind of dip in my social understanding of everything applied within the hip hop framework.
No doubt.
You know? And
Yeah.
so I've been phoned out, look her up, Sister Thandi P. I think it's hip hop development, hip hop
Okay.
dev.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate that. Did you
Yeah.
check out Sister Tony's book?
Oh, she got the Cypher book. I haven't
Yeah.
got
Yeah,
that
yeah,
yet.
yeah. I got that joint, man.
Oh, nice, nice.
Uh,
Yeah, shout out to Sister Toni Black on our Cypher, evolving, representation.
Yeah, wisdom of the Cypher, man.
Yeah, there you
Tony
go.
B, shout out.
I need to get me one of those soon.
Yeah, man, for sure. That one is dope, man. Good one. I had Tony on the podcast early, man. Episode 2. I'm gonna put down in the description as well so people can check it out.
Gotcha.
And that's it, brother. Brother Babaluku, man. Appreciate your time, man.
Oh, shout outs to my relatives over there. Shout outs to everyone repping the culture.
No doubt.
Shout out to those who understand the times. Shout outs to all of those who are taking their time to ensure that we are, living this planet better than we found it. Shout outs to all those who are feeding our children the right information to take up the responsibility and accountability that will strengthen their future. Shout outs to the practitioners who understand that it's not just about the short time, but real time matters. You know what I mean? Shout outs to everybody, who loves being human and understands the power of freedom and understands why we are here. You know what I'm saying? Because I understand once we know what the assignment is and we are aware that we are living in alignment with our assignment, we're actually able to, feel the gratification of why we did the work. And I pray that everyone can actually have a moment to appreciate themselves for the work that they're doing. You know what I'm saying? So if nobody's clapping for you, I'm clapping for you wherever you're situated. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I know the people that most often do the work don't get a clap. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Yeah.
They get overlooked. Overlooked, man. But shout out.
I know us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I salute you from wherever you're situated. The love remains, and you're always welcome to Uganda. Anywhere you want on the East Coast. We got brothers. You know what I mean?
100%.
So if you end up in Tanzania, if you end up in Kenya, hit us up. We take care of you, support you. And like I say, as relatives, I always say that hip hop gives us a language that's powerful. Me as my relative, regardless of different blood streams, we know we're connecting. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. No doubt.
Hey, word is bond. We stand by what we do. You know what I'm saying? And, when we say, we're parting ways and say, let's keep building, you know what I mean? We keep building, you know what I mean? So we know there's work to do. That's why we build.
That's right. There's definitely work to do. Man.
So let's do the work, man. Let's do the work.
Let's make it happen. Appreciate you, my brother.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Uhuru.
Yeah, peace and love.
All right. That's a wrap. Episode 84 in the books. We give thanks to the brother Babaluku. Hip hop culture is alive as always. Shout out to Toni Blackman. Shout out to Keith Tucker. Check out the links down in the description. Shout out to Guerrilla Republic Worldwide, Guerrilla Republic Cuba, and shout out to everyone repping the culture. Please go to blackpowermedia.org. Make sure you subscribe. Please like this video, share it with your peoples. You know what I mean? Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you want to collaborate, you can write us an email, VitalHoopsPodcast@gmail.com. I appreciate you checking us out. Please continue to support Vital Hoops, for the people, by the people, for the culture. Uhuru.